We're off on a cruise from Costa Rica to Cuba, calling in at some of the small islands off Nicaragua and Honduras. Not this huge liner, but the little one called Island Sky. But first we must pay a visit to a macadamia orchard and processing plant. Apparently you must be very patient, because having planted your tree, you must wait 7 years before your first crop.
Lives right there. Sorry, but he's gonna explain.
The nut grading and washing machine seems very basic. Our overexcited guide insisted upon showing us a shampoo ginger plant.
And it's very jello shape of water. See gelatinous? And it got a really good smell. It's a shampoo ginger. Okay, look at that right here. Look at that. I'm gonna do it again. See? And I'm not damaging the flower. The flower will be the same. And then when it rains, it's gonna hold more water. And it produces this delicious smell that in 2 minutes is going to smell bad. No kidding.
This historic Costa Rican site was beautifully preserved. Next up, we watch these two rather handsome buffalo operating a vintage sugar pressing mill. The juice from the crushed cane and whatever else is about is boiled down to make brown sugar. We now say goodbye to our pilots and set sail on a bumpy sea to the small island of San Andreas, which, although being a long way north, actually belongs to Colombia. This little tug guides us through a frighteningly narrow gap in the coral reef. We're obviously expected, as this rather overdressed reception committee is waiting for us in the hot sun. The locals just love to dance, although their styles are somewhat contrasting. No time to spare as we head off for our next destination, which is Isla de Providence off the coast of Nicaragua. In the past they had to protect themselves from pirates, but they seemed happy enough to meet us. The islanders are very proud of their wildlife and have a well-maintained bird sanctuary.
Charlie is the yellow-necked Amazon, second largest from the Amazon family. Also, Charlie is native here in the island of Roatan. Charlie also is known for his bright yellow patch behind his neck, his bone white beak, Also the yellow zebra one, the wing is the black yellow one. It's live for 4 weeks. Yeah. Yeah.
Our next port of call is Belize, where we travel on the backwaters, but not at this sedate pace. We arrive at the ancient Mayan city of Lamani, just as they begin to film a beer advert. It seems a shame to me that tourists are allowed to climb all over these wonderful old ruins. To my mind, some of the reconstruction detracts from the original splendour. Our speedboat gets us back on board just in time to see some dolphin. These lovely inquisitive creatures makes you sometimes wonder who's watching who. We leave Belize and head out to Laughing Bird Cay, a long narrow coral island on the outer reef. This is a perfect spot for snorkeling, but first we get a safety briefing from the local warden.
Give me a little bit of time so that I can make a visit to Laughing Bird Cay today more enjoyable by giving you some basic history and rules. Laughing Bird Cay National Park, folks, was declared a national park in 1996. And in that same year, it was declared part of the Belize Barrier Reef Reserve System World Heritage Site.
These frigate birds are majestic in flight, but very difficult to film. Whilst these brown-footed boobies seem a little shy about showing their feet. In this tree there's a large iguana, perfectly camouflaged. These large hermit crabs live among the tree roots. These small lizards sit dead still but move like lightning when they see an insect.
That's the local whether they eat them. He said no, we smash them open to make fish bait. But it makes me feel happier because then if his major claw is tied up with the stick, I know it's not going to bite me.
Above us in this tree is an osprey nest, but whilst Mrs. Osprey is watching the eggs, Mr. Osprey seems to be enjoying a very tasty fish supper. Our next stop is Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula and the Mayan city of Tulum, which is unusual as it's the only Mayan site that is built close to the sea. As you can see, this iguana agrees. Look, the sea is only just over there. On our way back, we get caught up in a carnival parade at Playa del Carmen. We must now try to board this ferry despite the vicious swell. As you can imagine, an hour aboard this heaving vessel somewhat tested your stomach. Next day we visit the 1,000-year-old Mayan site of San Can and learn all about the Mayan calendar.
Have every 4 years a leap year. The Mayas never did that. Every 4 years they have to wait for the calendars to match so they can add the 13 days, because that's the way they believe they're going to be sharp and exact, precise with the time. When both of these calendars going to be matching again, December 21st, 2012, Saturday in our era. And that'll be for some people the end of the world, they say. But like I mentioned, the Mayas never predict the end of the world. They said the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new one. We don't know what's going to happen. Anyway, like I mentioned, we have about 8 months to find out. So let me tell you, what they Mayas didn't wrote is any more predictions after this day, December 21st, 2012. And that's why people say the Mayas.
The good news is that perhaps the world won't end on the 21st of December this year. By yet one more mode of transport, we head across this peaceful lake and make our way back to the ship, say goodbye to Mexico and head off to Havana in Cuba. Now Havana, under the rule of Castro, is a city of contrasts. Some of the squares have beautifully restored buildings, others are absolutely derelict. But this country is world famous for its handmade cigars.
A year, 14 months. It does school, it's like some classes, but some people spend 14 months and they never learn.
I was a little disappointed watching this young man, as I'd always believed that the cigars were rolled on the naked thigh of a young dusky maiden. My disappointment was eased by a visit to the Tropicano nightclub. But in the cool light of day, the cathedral square is particularly attractive. And there's a camera rig setting up, ready for the Pope's visit tomorrow. Now, Havana has an antique car museum, but the real classics are the taxis that are still driving on the streets. 27 of these old American cars lined up to take us on a tour of the city. Very beginning of the 20th century, 30s and the 40s, and then the 50s.
Fantastic.
Our first stop was in the park to have a look at some giant banyan trees, but I must confess everybody seemed more interested in the cars. Up until 1959, Cuba was the American playground, and the rich and famous came here and bought their luxury cars. But when they left in a hurry, these were the only vehicles that the Cubans had. And thanks to their engineering genius, they've managed to still keep them running until today. Leaving the city, we head out into the countryside, where there's vast valleys and huge limestone rocks and mountains. Many of which are riddled with caves and underground caverns. This river disappears deep into the darkness, a somewhat eerie experience. Back into the sunshine, we head off to a farm where a huge cliffside has been painted with this weird work of art. Apparently the painters abseiled on long ropes while the artist stood way back with a megaphone telling them which colour to use where. I must admit I've never seen a rider astride a zebu before. We also called in at Hemingway's house, which has been restored and kept exactly as it was when he lived there. Complete with his fishing boat, Pila. Legend has it that he drained his swimming pool and would never again let anybody swim in it, having seen Ava Gardner swim naked, saying that nothing would ever be more beautiful. We couldn't leave without a quick drink in Hemingway's favourite bar. Cuba is probably most famous for its cigars, and this is where the tobacco is grown and dried. Heading back into the city, we could not have imagined what was in store for our next day. Complete with two separate bands, we were off for a ride on the Hershey train. Originally built in 1929, this electric train was designed to transport sugar, but now it's just a barrel of fun. There's such a swinging party going on inside, it's easy to forget about the scenery slipping by. Having consumed far too many rum punches, we stop in the middle of nowhere to be met by a man with a horse and a sugar cane crushing demonstration. Back on the train, it's time to slow down and relax and think of some of the wonderful things we've seen and done on this trip.